Hi and welcome to lesson 2, the bass clef. As we just learned, music is written on a series of 5 lines called the staff. We've already seen the treble clef, which is used for the right hand if you're playing a keyboard instrument, piano, keyboard, etc. Treble clef of course is used for the higher notes, the treble part. So if you're singing, you would be reading from the treble clef. Bass clef, often used of course for left hand of piano, and bass meaning the lower notes, the deeper parts of the piano. Instruments that use bass clef of course are things like bass guitar, cello, tuba, all of the low bass instruments. If you're singing, of course, you would have to be like a bass or a tenor, which is singing down lower in the lower parts. 5 lines and 4 spaces, just like we had in treble clef. The lines, the spaces. With the treble clef, the lines were E, G, B, D, F, and of course if you use the rhyme every good boy deserves fruit, you can use a similar rhyme for the bass clef to help you remember the letter names of the notes. With bass clef, we actually start with G, B, D, F, A. Good boys deserve fruit always. Good boys deserve fruit always. So if you use that rhyme in the treble clef, you can use a variation of it for the bass clef. G, B, D, F, A. There are lots of other rhymes you can use, of course, but we'll just focus on this one because it's very similar to the treble clef. So this would be good boys deserve fruit always. Spaces, A, C, E, and G. A, C, E, G. All cows eat grass. Like I said with treble clef, if you're a rhymes person, it's very easy to remember these rhymes. Good boys deserve fruit always, and all cows eat grass. Very easy to remember them. I remember when I was learning, I found it much easier just to remember G, B, D, F, A and A, C, E, G, rather than remembering rhymes for letters. But totally up to you which way you prefer to learn and remember the notes. Remember, we have the 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In between each line we have a space. Bass clef for the bass, the lower notes. Treble clef was used for the higher notes. Bass clef used for instruments like bass guitar, tuba, things like that, cello. Treble clef is used for the higher, the treble instruments such as voice, flute, violin, clarinet, instruments like that. Bass clef, the staff of 5 lines, or stave. The lines, G, B, D, F, A. Good boys deserve fruit always. In the spaces, A, C, E, G. Now, like I explained with treble clef, the notes do go higher and lower. When they go higher, we use ledger lines, which go up and up and up. Really what you're doing is replicating the 5 lines in a continuation above. Sitting on the top line, just like the musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, line, space, line, space, line, space. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B would sit on the top line, C, then D. This C here is what we call middle C. Essentially, we have treble clef above the bass, and that middle C note here is exactly the same pitch and the same note as the one I've just drawn there in treble clef. That note is middle C. You can kind of see now probably why it's called middle C. It's also the C that's closest to the middle on the piano keyboard, but it's the C that sits in the middle area between treble and bass clef. This C here is exactly the same note, the same pitch, just like I played on the piano, as this note in bass clef. Both clefs now would then be joined, lines at the front, and you can see then E on the line, which we just learnt in treble clef in the last lesson, D below, C, B, A, G, F, and it literally now becomes 5 lines, an imaginary 11th line running through the middle, which we call middle C, which is this one here, if it's written in left hand, bass clef. This version, if it's written right hand, upper parts of the piano, in treble clef. So now what we've done is we've actually joined our 5 lines in the treble to 5 lines in the bass, and we have what we call now the great staff, is when we have 5 and they're actually joined at the front with a bar line, double bar line, thick line. And you normally see this fancy thing, which I can't draw, a brace, it's called at the beginning. So when we put the two together, 5 and 5, treble and bass, we end up with 10 lines, imaginary middle C line running through the middle there that we just draw the line when we need to write that note. Okay. G, B, D, F, A. A, C, E, G. All cows eat grass. Good boys deserve fruit always.